Welcome to Active to Passive Income. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear plan to generate your own passive income. We're going to be covering three things. First, the truth about passive income, then the cash flow quadrant, and then the difference between assets and liabilities. Most people spend years chasing passive income, but this will actually show you how. This video is part of the Cashflow Explorer free course, and this is part of level 3. Pack for the journey. Let's dive into passive income. When most people hear passive income, you typically think about sitting in the beach on a hammock somewhere with a cocktail and no laptop in sight, and money is just rolling in at the beginning of the month. This is kind of the fairy tale version that people sell you online, but we want to dive into how we actually do this. I think sitting on the beach would be fun for a little bit, but I would much rather be outside drinking my coffee with a beautiful view. Either way though, we're all searching for cash flow that pays us while we sleep. Here's the truth. Income is on a spectrum. No income is truly zero effort forever, but some income comes pretty close. And understanding where different investments sit on this spectrum is how you build a portfolio that works for you. One of the easiest things you can do that takes pretty much no effort is opening up a high yield savings account. And this gives you monthly interest at the beginning of the month. This is low risk passive income and takes 10 minutes of your time, so it really doesn't get easier than this. However, there's tons of options across the spectrum, so working your way up to more active. Next, you have stocks and investments. They're still very passive. You just might do a little bit more research on choosing what you want to buy. Next up are rental properties. I actually put these pretty close to the active side because it's a lot of work to be managing your own properties. And on the very far right-hand side of this income spectrum is building a business that creates passive income for you in the future, but you still have to do a lot of work to get it set up. And you might be able to tell that there's a clear distinction between the left side and the right side. On the left-hand side, in this case, is when you're actually buying passive income. So you're trading money for more money and you're letting it compound. Where on the right-hand side, you're building your own passive income. So this is when you put in your hustle, your energy, and your skills in order to build something that generates cash flow moving forward. And either option is totally fine. You can buy or build your passive income. So when you're thinking about buying your passive income, that's when you put your money into the passive income machine and then you get monthly or quarterly payouts from then. But if you are building your passive income, you actually need to build the machine. So you're going to put in your time and your effort, and then it can pay you monthly or quarterly, just like an investment would. Either way, no matter what, the takeaway is that there is always an input to passive income. So when we say passive income, it's really, well, how passive is it? When you're trying to decide what works best for you, I want you to think about your personal advantages. So if you have more money than time, you really want to be investing for your passive income. But if you have more time than money, you can go out and actually build the business or buy the real estate that pays you cash flow. Here's an example of where my different income streams sit on this spectrum. So on the left-hand side, where I'm buying passive income, this is where I have all of my cash flow. So it's high yield savings account and private money lending interest. I have stocks with dividends. I also am invested in a lot of real estate syndication deals. So these are commercial real estate properties. I've also invested into small businesses and an oil and gas fund. All of these things pay me monthly or quarterly for none of my own work. I had to vet the deals and investments on the front end, but after I wire over the money, I'm completely done with it. And since those things are completely passive, it still gives me a lot of time to work on the right-hand side of this equation where I'm building my passive income. And I do that through building businesses. I'm also starting to generate some income from content platforms like YouTube for posting videos there, and some income comes in from affiliate fees from the content that I create. And as you can see, I have rentals crossed out here. I have wanted to get a rental for so long, but I've finally come to the conclusion that it is just not a good use of my time. When I can invest completely passively for 10 or 12% returns with somebody else who is a professional and an expert in what they do, I give my money to them and then I completely focus all of my effort on the active income side. So I've given up the dream of owning my own rentals, but maybe one day in the future. My takeaway is that I spend 90% of my time on active income, and then I use that to buy my passive income. Like we talked about earlier, this is all investment cash flow. So when you ask the question, why are people buying real estate and businesses? Well, you're buying an asset that is already producing cash flow. So if you're buying a real estate property, oftentimes there's already a renter or tenant there who is paying. So if you buy that asset, you're going to start to get those monthly checks rolling through. And if you buy a business that is already operating, maybe it does a couple $1 million a year in annual revenue, well, you still have that income coming in. There is an incredible opportunity to buy assets that are already cash flowing, and that's what a lot of people talk about online. I am personally not going out and buying my own real estate or small businesses. I'm investing with others who are doing that, and I'm focusing all of my efforts on my advantages. So I want you to think about this income spectrum whenever you're considering new opportunities, because on the right side of the spectrum, you trade time directly for money. If you stop working, the income stops. But on the left-hand side, capital generates income with almost no ongoing involvement from you. So you deploy the money, you do the upfront work once, but then the income keeps arriving on its own. And that's as close to passive as it actually gets. Now let's take a look at the cash flow quadrant. I think this is such a handy way to see where your income sources can come from, and it breaks it down really simply. So this comes from the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. He has written a ton of books, and Cash Flow Quadrant is one of them. I highly recommend it to everybody. And as you can see, the subtitle for the Cash Flow Quadrant book is Guide to Financial Freedom. So we're all talking about the same things at the end of the day. He has your possible income sources coming from 4 different places, and he organizes them in a quadrant. So in the top left, you're an employee, and that's where you have a job. In the bottom left, you are self-employed, and you essentially own your own job, but if you stop working, that income will stop coming in. In the top right, you're a business owner, so you own a system and people can carry out the work for you, and your business can actually grow even if you're not involved. And then in the bottom right, we have an investor where money works for you. And he splits up the 4 sources of income in this quadrant. The top left is E for employee, where you have a job. You're trading time for a salary or hourly wage. Your employer controls your income, so if you stop showing up, the income stops. Most people start here, and there's nothing wrong with that. W-2 income is what funds everything else, but it is fully active income. You're always trading time for money. And the bottom left is the self-employed bucket, where you own a job. It means you work for yourself. You could be a freelancer, consultant, a solo business owner, an independent contractor. You have more freedom than the E quadrant, but you are still the system. So if you take a month off, the business also takes a month off and no income comes in. So income is still tied to your time in this case. So the left-hand side of the quadrant is very active. Moving to the right-hand side, let's go to business owner in the top right. You actually own a system that generates income with or without you. And this system are people, processes, and technology that do the work for you. A true business owner can step away from the business for months at a time and come back to find that the business is still running. This is where you actually have leverage from being a business owner. And then in the bottom right, I quadrant is for investors, where your capital works for you and your money generates more money. So every cash flowing investment that you do goes in this quadrant. In general, the left side is more active and the right side is passive. But it's also really important to tell you that the left-hand side is where you're paying the most in taxes. W-2 income and self-employment income are typically taxed at ordinary income rates at the highest tax bracket that you reach. And then the right side is a little bit different. So passive income from investments, long-term capital gains, and depreciation benefits from real estate can often be taxed at significantly lower rates than your paycheck. So moving right gives you more freedom, and it also gives you a more tax efficient structure at the same time. So you're getting a lot more leverage over your time and your money on the right-hand side. And the key to a financially free life is moving to the right side of the quadrant. But it doesn't all happen at once. It is a process. Most people will start on the left side and then slowly build income on the right. You can use job income to fund investments until the right side is large enough to make the left side optional. And that's exactly what we're doing. To double click into that example, if you're a high earning employee, you have your W-2 income in your job, and you use that income to then invest as much as possible and let your money work for you. This is how you slowly move to the right-hand side. Your plan is pretty simple. On the active side, you want to increase your W-2 income, and then on the passive side, invest for your freedom. I like to invest in cash flow for that exact reason. And then the plan for a business owner is still to make as much as you can through your business, but then plow as much as possible into your investments. When you're a business owner, one of the best investments you can make is into your own business and installing systems and processes to buy back your time. So the active work of a business owner could actually be improving their business and helping lower the expenses or increase the revenue of their business. But one of the biggest risks of being a business owner is that all of your income comes from one source. So when you take that business income and then you put it into investments, you're having a lot more flexibility and you're mitigating risk. And a lot of people hate on being on the left-hand side of this quadrant, but I am still an employee today and I've been self-employed. So instead of seeing your day job or business as a hindrance to your freedom, instead leverage it to move money into investments that will buy your freedom in the future. Now let's move on to assets versus liabilities. In level 2, we calculated your financial freedom targets, your secure number, your independent number, and your free number. These are monthly cash flow goals, but we did not talk about how you actually hit them. The answer is assets, real cash flow producing assets. To reach any of those targets, you have to stack assets that pay you enough to cover your monthly expenses. So I'm going to pull this slide up again because it's the key financial freedom equation. When your monthly cash flow is greater than your monthly expenses, you're financially free. It's not by saving more or grinding harder, but it's by becoming an owner of assets and an investor in assets. And here's where a lot of people get stuck because they think they are building and buying assets when they're actually buying liabilities. And there's a very real difference between those two. Let me use our minivan as an example. We drive a 2025 Toyota Sienna Woodland Edition. As you can tell, I'm very proud of it. It is our dream car. We knew going in that it was a luxury. We could have bought a used beater that gets us from point A to point B just fine, but we wanted it and we wanted it for the long haul. We were fully aware of what we're getting into. Make no mistake, a minivan is a liability. You can have a car payment, insurance, gas, maintenance. It takes money out of our pocket every month. It does not generate a single dollar of income. So it's really easy to define this van as a liability because it takes money out of our pocket every month. For some other liabilities of things that take money out of our pocket every month, you can have consumer debt, like a credit card payment. So that could be $100 a month. You can also have a car payment, or even if it's not a car payment with debt, just having something that takes money out of your pocket every month in this case is defined as a liability. And now one that's going to make some people a little bit uncomfortable, but your personal residence, most people see as an asset. However, if you are still paying a mortgage or you have repairs, it is a liability. As long as you are not renting out your home is taking money out of your pocket every month. That doesn't mean you shouldn't own a home because owning your house has real benefits like building equity, having more stability in a landlord, but do not count your primary residence as an income producing asset when you're doing the math. A little difference here is that you can include your vehicle and your house in your net worth statement, but for the conversation of cash flow, these are liabilities because they take money out of your pocket every month. On the flip side, let's look at some assets. So when you have something like dividend stocks that pay you every month, that is an asset. On the 15th of the month, you know you're going to get your dividend payment. And real estate shows up here again, but instead of it being your personal residence, it's investment real estate. So you could be a landlord and somebody is renting it, and then they are paying you monthly rent. Now, instead of the same house being a liability, it is now an asset that pays you $200 a month. And then for a new example, I'm going to take my cupcake bakery investment. I was an owner of a passive local business, and this paid me over $500 a month. This is another example of an asset. All three of these put money in our pocket every month. To show you more examples of cash flow producing assets, they're all on the right-hand side of the cash flow quadrant. So you have business ownership and bonus points if it's a systematized business that pays you even if you're not working. In the bottom right, you have things like public stocks, real estate, private business, and lending. Ideally, everything on this side continues to pay you even if you're not working. And here's the big trap. It's when you use your income to then buy more liabilities. So you use your higher income and you get a car loan or you get a mortgage, but now you're on the hook for that payment for the next 5 or 30 years. So this is how most people get stuck. You use your income to buy more liabilities. So if you take your high income and you go out and you get a nice car or you get a mortgage, you're now on the hook for those payments for the next 5 to 30 years. This is what gets you stuck in lifestyle creep. As your income goes up, so do your expenses. And getting into bigger debt payments is what locks you into lifestyle creep. On the other hand, what you can do with your income instead is use it to buy assets. So if you use your income to buy more assets like real estate and businesses, that then pay you cash flow, which then increase your income that you can use to buy more assets. And this is where you get the cycle going. Once you have enough assets that generate cash flow, you can then use that to buy your liabilities. So as a real example of this, Amy and I invested in income producing assets for 2 years, and then we used those to pay for our van. So I didn't actually have to pay money out of my own pocket for the van, and we bought a brand new vehicle. This is the right order to do things. Use your income to buy assets, let that cycle run, and then use your assets to buy your liabilities. We were fully aware that we were buying a liability when we bought the minivan, but because our assets paid for it, it wasn't reliant on our income. And this is a huge mindset shift. And this gets so powerful because it starts to compound. When you have this gap between your income and your expenses, and then you use your income to buy assets, those assets compound over time in multiple ways. So let's use real estate as an example. If you buy a real estate property, that is paying you cash flow to own it, and it is also appreciating. So your assets get that compound interest curve. Same thing too, if you're investing in dividend stocks, you're getting those dividend payments and the value of the stock is going up as well. And if you stick with it long enough, your assets are eventually going to eclipse your income. Just like we talked about in the Freedom Numbers video, you are financially independent once your asset cash flow covers your expenses. This is when you don't need to work anymore. But once the cash flow from your assets actually covers all of your current income, that is when you're financially free and you can do whatever you want. This is why we've been progressively building up to this concept over time. We want to keep our expenses lower, raise our income to have that gap, and then we use that gap to invest in assets that pay us cash flow that then increase our income even further and make us not reliant on work. To boil it all down, use your income to buy assets. So as a summary, this is your financial freedom cheat sheet. Use your income to buy more assets. And then if you want to buy liabilities, make sure that your assets can pay for it. Sticking to this cycle is how you build towards financial freedom. In terms of how you get your passive income or cash flow, you can either buy it or build it. But either way, you need assets. Let's wrap things up with some takeaways. Remember that passive income is on a spectrum. All passive income has an input. You either buy it or you build it. In the cash flow quadrant, instead of working for money, we want to move to the right-hand side and have your money work for you. And then assets versus liabilities. Remember that assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take it out. Use your income to buy more assets and always prioritize your assets before liabilities. And if you're struggling to use your income to buy more assets, remember that's why we set up the financial flow this way. We use this system to avoid lifestyle creep and then make it much easier to invest as much as possible. So if you didn't watch that video, check out Grow the Gap. We want to make it effortless to get more income producing assets and make it harder to spend money. For your action items, think through if you should buy or build your passive income or what you should do a mixture of both with. For the cash flow quadrant, what is your left to right hand side plan? And then for assets versus liabilities, calculate your monthly asset income versus your monthly liability expenses. In this video, we covered the clear plan to generate your own passive income. And congratulations, you have finished level 3 Pack for the Journey. So you can get out your field guide and then stamp it. You are now ready to move on to level 4. Level 4 is called Always Safety First. And what's coming up in the next video is stock investing. It's the steps to guarantee your financial future. Looking forward to seeing you there.